You're one creative idea away from, whatever you want. We live in this time now when you can fire up YouTube and you can figure out tactical, information. There's so many podcasts. For me, I think your life changes through the books you read or materials you study, the people you meet and experiences you have. And there truly is something to study that's going to help you wherever you are on the path. And usually it's just about starting, right? Because the universe is going to meet you more than halfway, but it's you kind of just making that one motion, that one action towards whatever you want. And there's also an opportunity, like when I started, it was kind of moonlighting on the side. It was as a, now people would call it a
side gig,
a side hustle. Yeah. So, and there's so much time as well, right? You think about how much time am I on social media, or am I watching on my laptop or phone or whatever it is? And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to change some of that from consumption time into creation time and then see what happens.
Welcome to the MINDTRX podcast with breakthrough ideas to live your best life possible and how to make it happen. I'm Paul Scheele, and today we will be joined by Yanik Silver. Yanik Silver redefines how business is played in the 21st century at the intersection of evolutionary growth, impact, and fun. He's the founder of Maverick 1000, a global collective of visionary entrepreneurs making a serious difference in the world without taking themselves too seriously. In fact, it's not unusual to find Yanik dressed as a lemur, a showgirl, or even in matching mermaid tails with Sir Richard Branson. Yanik is creator of The Cosmic Journal and author of Evolved Enterprise. Hello, Yanik. Welcome aboard. Thanks so much for being here and being a part of the MINDTRX podcast.
Oh, I'm excited. Thanks, Paul.
Well, to me, you're a shining example of a maverick entrepreneur, lifelong into it, expanding it, finding a deep purpose for the work that you do, aligning your mind, your heart, and your higher purpose for a greater good. Super impressive. I love your writing. I love what you share. And I would like to create a few moments here to really explore, how does someone become an entrepreneur and ultimately discover that being an evolved entrepreneur is the way to go?
Yeah, thanks. I think that it really lives within all our hearts, because when I talk about, what you mentioned, connecting your head, your heart, your higher purpose. So the head is the business side, it's the marketing side. The heart is the impact we want to make in the world. And then the higher purpose is like, all right, so why are we here? Why do we come down here for? What do we, maybe in some cases volunteer for, whatever it is. But I think it starts with like figuring out, well, there's a couple ways. Sometimes you start as an entrepreneur out of necessity. It's like, oh, I got fired, or I got, I hate my boss, or I see something that I think I could do better, and you just kind of fall into it. There's other times when it comes from a little bit more of a strategic place where it's like, all right, well, I care about this key thing that I want to maybe, right a particular wrong in some case, or I have a deep why that I want to have, or a mission and a purpose that I want to express through this business. And so there's really no one path into being an entrepreneur, but you just continue to fall into it, and you continue following that intuition and seeing what shows up, really.
Yeah, I can think of how many times people said, how did you get into your business? I said, it was a big mistake, actually. I was on a completely different career path and that I fell into. I love the word fall into it. But I would also like to say a lot of people think of going into business as being extremely risky, like it's something that they don't feel safe doing. And yet you've always had, I think, a real deep comfort with it. What's the difference that seems to make the difference for you?
I mean, for me, I always believe that you're one creative idea away from, whatever you want. And you're so good at helping people harness that creativity. There's many tools and resources out there, but also that knowing within yourself that that you can figure it out. And everything really is, like one of my friends, Marie Forleo, wrote a book called, I think, Everything is Figureoutable. And it's like that, it truly is. And it's like we live in this time now when you can fire up YouTube and you can figure out tactical, information. There's so many podcasts, so many wonderful ones like this, and sharing. For me, I think your life changes through the books you read or materials you study, the people you meet, and the experiences you have. And there truly is a material or something to study that's going to help you wherever you are on the path. And usually it's just about starting, right? Because the universe is going to meet you more than halfway, but it's you kind of just making that one motion, that one action towards whatever you want. And there's also an opportunity, like when I started, it was kind of moonlighting on the side. It was as a, now people would call it what the heck is it called? A
side gig.
Side gig, a side hustle. Yeah. So, and there's so much time as well, right? You think about how much time am I on social media, or am I watching, I don't know if it's even TV anymore, or watching on my laptop or phone or whatever it is. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to change some of that from consumption time into creation time and then see what happens.
Super powerful. I'd love to get into this idea of creating, because either we're freaked out, stressed out, overloaded, and the brain gets down regulated into a fight or flight or a freeze response, or we really open up and we see possibility. In the early days of my entrepreneurism, I listened to Earl Nightingale and Lead the Field and a lot of his other programs. One of the things he said, take a few minutes every day to come up with 10 new ideas that could increase your sales or increase the success of your business. I did that. I really followed that. I took a lot of advice from a lot of people. How do people get into that creative mode as you've seen it? Because you're a fun-loving guy. You really set the bar high on creativity.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Earl Nightingale. He's one of my mentors as well. I loved it. I don't remember where I ran into him very, very early. It was like 17 or 18 actually. But I found that advice of like making your car into a university on wheels. And it was, from Earl, I took, you can learn or study for 1 hour a day for 3 years and become an expert, or learn or study for 1 hour a day for 5 years and become a world-class expert. And I'm like, well, what happened if you did it for 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day? And for me, I was fascinated by this idea of getting people to respond via direct response marketing. So, writing ads or letters. And at that point, I was selling to doctors. And because I wanted to avoid this pain, which was my dad, I worked for my dad in medical equipment sales and service company. And at 16, I only got a car if I went out and cold called doctors. And I'm this little 16, 17-year-old, basically a punk calling on these 50, 60-year-old doctors. And it was painful. So one of my doctor clients who I sold the whole surgery center gave me this tape about marketing and kind of turned the lights on for me. And then I actually got interested in Earl Nightingale somehow, and it just kind of like kept going. But the ways of like finding these ideas, I love that you took Earl's advice to heart. And it's most people, they stumble over so much gold essentially, and they're like, oh, it won't work, or they have so many reasons that they won't try something or they don't think it'll work. But what I want to challenge you to, and maybe challenge is too strong a word, but let you experiment with it. I love experiments. Is like just take a piece of advice and experiment with it for maybe it's 21 days or a month, or for me it was always these 33-day experiments. It was a little more than a month, and it was just like a more specific number, and I could play around with it. And I came to that later in life, but I would do this if I was starting again much earlier, where it's just like, all right, let me experiment. So yours is 10 ideas a day. And I think businesses, it can be overcomplicated, and you simplify it into saying, this is my first thing I wrote in my journal, which is how do I get rich by enriching others 10x to 100x in return for what they provide me, or what I charge them. So it was always like, how do I provide 10x to 100x in value? And so those ideas that you were coming up with, I'm sure it was, how do I create more value for people? How do I, have them say yes to something? What's going to make their lives better? And that's as simple as it really needs to be.
Yeah, I remember when I got my business started, and I started learning strategies in 1981. I had printed on our business checks a little byline that was a quote from Akio Morita, who was then the chairman of Sony Corporation. And every time I signed my name on a check that would go out from my business, I would repeat that phrase. And it was, the only and everlasting source of profit is the creation of value. And that just, it so resonated with me that I always wanted to know that whatever I was producing was going to be of the highest quality and the highest value, not perceived value, but truly delivering value to the customer that's going to receive it.
Yeah, and it's just that easy. I mean, so I have my kids now are 18 and 16, and for 7 years we ran a family entrepreneurship event. And it was, it was some of my hardest audiences ever because I took the kids that were maybe like 6 to 13. We had a little older group that was working online with one of my colleagues. But so 6 to 13, I was teaching them about business, and it was just that basic. It was like, all right, what's the value that you're going to provide to people? And so if it was a babysitting job, it's okay, here's the value, but what can you do to enhance that value in some way? Or, so we would do it around New Year's or July 4th, and then I would buy products for them, and then they would divide up into teams and they would go out and go sell them. And it was fascinating to see the process because, they'd have to get creative. They'd bundle up products together. They'd provide a bonus in some way. They would maybe provide, say that we're going to do a charity contribution because we'd also expose them to this idea of impact and making a difference. And they'd spend a day with the charity that we lined up for them. They didn't have to do it. It was all, it was, they had complete control and autonomy, but it was powerful to see. But that whole idea of value, that was the bedrock of everything.
A colleague of mine who taught at a university in Sweden created a program called Me University, which in essence, when you enrolled in it, you would develop during your 4 years at the university a business that would employ you when you graduated, as opposed to, I'm going to school so I can get a degree so I can go to work for somebody. You're going to school to develop your skills to employ yourself. And I thought that mindset is really, even if you're working for someone for a paycheck, it doesn't matter. If you have this kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, that wherever you are, wherever you're planted, you're going to grow into more of who you truly are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really a question that you can, like, so I believe that the right questions open up the right answers, and the better your questions, the better your answers. And so if you're constantly asking yourself, like you were saying, how do I come up with 10 ideas that are going to make my customers or people around me better, then that's the answer they're going to keep getting. If my questions are, how do I create, something that's worth 10x to 100x in return for what someone's going to pay me, then those are the answers that I'm going to keep getting. So it's really about those questions that create those answers.
And you had a bit of a mantra in the book that I read of yours, Evolved
Enterprise.
Evolved Enterprise. By the way, brilliant. Everybody has to get it. It's absolutely brilliant. But this idea, better, sooner, more, was a very cool mantra to really help expand your thinking. Could you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's around goal setting. So I learned goal setting, way back. Actually, I remember attending maybe a Brian Tracy event or something like that, and you write down the goals, and then and so I wrote them down. And then I proceeded to promptly lose that piece of paper with my top 10, and it was really interesting because then I went back and I'm like, oh yeah, I hit that. Or I hit that, but oh, I got this car which I wanted, which was even better than this car. So then I started adding, or better, or faster, or sooner, because then it allowed more space and opportunity, really, for the universe to step in and be like, okay, you think you want this, but really, what if we present you this, which is even better? And now I've got to the spot where it's more about the intention, and I have this little plaque that came out of my journal that's sitting on my desk, and I'll read it for those of you that can't see it in the video, but it says, trust the universe has even more in store for you than you can imagine. Trust the divine timing. Trust your crazy ideas. Trust your wings will grow when you leap. Trust your nature. Trust you've been encoded with a cosmic alarm clock. Trust the signs, symbols, and synchronicity sent to you. Trust the co-conspirators catalyzing your conscious evolution. Trust the perfect unfolding of your understanding. Trust your divine connections.
Love it. So, okay, so pause right there because this is an important piece about our higher purpose, as well as aligning our coherently and congruently our head and our heart and our will to really do our work in the world, to follow our bliss, follow our higher purpose. Could it starts to get on what I would call a little bit of a metaphysical edge or spiritual edge sometimes for people. But I really do want to say that this gets more in alignment with not only our neurobiology, but also the quantum mechanical universe that we're operating in. You follow these principles, what you're going to discover is how the universe works. And you could just attend to your breath, as I was trained in yoga meditation, and discover the universe. So if we could just for a moment say a bit more about life as being this fabulous laboratory. Let's do thought experiments. Let's do experiments on those deeper questions that we have and let the universe show you the truth about how things go.
Yeah, I mean, now we're getting into the good stuff. And it's like when I first started, I had some of these inclinations, but I wasn't sure how they all fit into the business world. I thought maybe business is over here, and then maybe spiritual practices or some of the weirder stuff is over here. And as a kid, I was very much interested in all sorts of things like sacred sites and ancient cultures, but I kind of put it all away because I thought, all right, business is, in this one particular box. And what I've realized, and it's not always apparent, but when you start getting deeper, you see there's a deep spiritual practice that comes out of being in business, out of being an entrepreneur, and it's fascinating because it starts with you. I love your colleague with the Me University because it starts with evolving yourself, and business is going to be like one of my favorite books is by Michael Singer, Surrender Experiment, and then also Untethered Soul. And I
Mhm.
read that, I don't know, 7 or 8 times. And in there, he was this yogi that just wanted to go meditate in the woods of Florida and not be disturbed. But he made a deal with the universe that basically anything put in front of him, he would accept wholeheartedly as, that is divinely presented to him. And what happened is he quickly learned as he kind of went into business, he started in construction and then moved into just this curiosity with software and then built a pretty big medical software company. And what was fascinating, he said that business helped him develop way more spiritually than any of his spiritual practices. And it's just going to happen automatically because when we're in that constant relationship of what are we providing, what, as you said, following your bliss, and then getting feedback and response from the marketplace, from others that we have relationship with, it's just a natural process.
It is a natural process. And if you take it as a spiritual practice, there's something else that's involved here. It's this idea that you're not looking for the payback.
Mm.
You're not looking for the reward. You're not doing it because this is going to give you something that you don't have. You're doing it because it's your practice. You're doing it because it's your bliss. You're following a path that your heart and mind are set on because it's aligned with a higher purpose. For example, I was a kid going to university in biological sciences. I'd just been initiated into a 5,000-year-old tradition of Raja Yoga, was a very disciplined meditator, and I got this download. I thought, okay, I'll do it. And 12 years later, I produced the very first paraliminal recording. And the journey to get there was amazing. The technology did not exist to make it possible when I got the download. So I really had to stay on. I had to be very persistent and dogged in my determination. And that, to me, is also an important aspect of who you are and what you present, especially in your Mavic 1000. These are people who are so all in, they're so committed, and they're doing such transformational work in the world that there is no doubt but that they're going to do it regardless.
Yeah, it's such an interesting process, and I came to this later in life, and it's like I just find more and more when you're congruent, when you're in alignment, the things just open up, and you don't even know how they're going to open up for you. And that's where the magic is. And I think I love synchronicities too. The Carl Jung concept of meaningful coincidence would be probably the easiest way to describe it, but it's so much more than that. And when you start leaning into that, you find that things just continue opening up for you. And what came to me as you're saying that is, I came to the Bhagavad Gita later in life, and I read this concept of that you're not entitled to the fruits of your action, but you're only entitled to your action. And that was really saying that if you put your heart and soul into something, that's the true reward. And if you think about it, in your own life, when that has happened, it's usually a creative venture in some capacity. It's you creating out of just to want to creating for yourself, and something that you want to put out there. And regardless of how the world kind of, or how the marketplace accepts it or rewards you, but more often than not, you're going to be rewarded greatly. And I have, many times I've seen this, where I'm just following some sort of curiosity or some sort of intuitive, this seems interesting. I'm going to play with this. And the latest one was actually kind of an art project that I for 108 nights every single day. So I love journaling, and I know we'll talk about journaling, but for every single night for 108 nights, I just created basically an art page in a journal, which was I drew something, I would meditate, or I'd look at old journals and take out something and then just write whatever came through me. And it started working like an oracle. And it just has had the most magical sort of evolution of, now it got published, and so many people have found it, and it's been really incredible. But it didn't start off like that. It was just a project for me.
Well, the cosmic journal, the galactic instruction manual, is so gorgeous. And I would like to talk about that. And it's kind of dovetailing on this idea that, hey, life is an experiment. This physical human experience is the best laboratory possible. Let's explore it. Let's play. And you do have a playful side to you and all of that. Love the whimsical nature of your drawings as well. But I do want to tell you, Yanik, that as much benefit as I've gotten from journaling, and here I was journaling this morning as well.
Yep.
I've got stacks of journals that I've filled up. It's such an important practice to be able to reflect on my own life, to ask questions and get responses, to get perspective, to really see myself from a higher level. And yet, no matter how much I try to suggest to my clients the importance of it, for them it's, and there's always a reason not to. Could you give us some encouragement of why this is such a valuable practice in your life?
Well, I'll throw my hand up and say, it's also been so impactful in my life, and I think of it as a foundational success secret, really. And because what happens is so many of us have all these things that are jumbled up in our head that are usually the continuous conversation that we're having. It's the same kind of thoughts, ideas, and by putting it on paper, it creates a beginning, a middle, and an end. Just on one page. And so it doesn't have to be, so again, back to our experiments, I think we have to make it as easy as possible to win in these experiments. And then you're also saying, I'm going to, attempt this, try this, play with it, see what happens for X amount of time. Again, it could be, 11 days, it could be 21 days, could be 33 days, could be whatever, but it has to be more than one day. It's like meditation. It builds on itself. And you're not going to, have all the secrets of the universe revealed to you by one day of journaling, but you will start seeing it develop as a practice that you love, or maybe not. You'll see, but by trying it. And so again, making it easy. And so what I do is I set aside, for me, it's before bed, and the same chair every night. So it's like you want your spot, and then you want a particular time band. And so as you're experimenting with it, you say, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes. So not, whatever, 10, 15 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes, whatever, but it's not that much time. And then what people also freak out about is, I don't know what to write. And then they also think about, well, what if somebody reads this? That's a big one. And so if you are worried about that, then maybe have a little lockbox or something else, and just put it away somewhere. You can also use code in there, you can do whatever you want. But mine are sitting in my desk. My daughter has read them before, and she's like, you write way too small, and you're pretty boring. But that spot of just making it easy to win, that's huge, because then you'll start realizing, oh, I really like this, and then just get your pen moving. And there is something about pen too. It has to be your pen, so it can't be typing, because there's a different neural network that is connected in
And
that
I
way.
love one of the things that you said is that the pen is the magic wand to create your world. And I
Yeah.
agree that mind is able to run past us so fast. And what writing does is it really captures it and holds it. And this is especially good. Byron Katie in her work, Loving What Is, talked about getting all conflict belongs on paper. Get
Mm.
it out of your head, out of your heart, put it on paper, because then you can look at it and challenge some of the bigger assumptions behind it. Not only is the writing important, but the idea of a non-dominant hand. I
Oh,
went back after looking into your work on journaling. I went back to some of my early journals, and I have left hand writing, non-dominant handwriting back in 1980. I ask the question with the right hand, I
yeah.
write the answer with the other hand. It's so cool what comes through. Say a bit about how you discovered it and what that's
It's really
about.
incredible. Yeah, so I think that there's no right or wrong way to journal, and there's so many things that you can do in there. And one of my favorites is that non-dominant handwriting. And I learned it from a guy named Bill Donius, who wrote a book called Thought Revolution. And it's funny because I play ice hockey still. I played growing up, and it's a non-checking league, but every once in a while it gets a little rough. And so I got hit, and I ended up falling on my right elbow, and I couldn't journal that night. I'm like, oh, I feel like I have this book on non-dominant or left-handed writing somewhere, and so I found it, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and so all right, I'll play with it. And I use my left hand, and what came out was like, huh, it was me, but it was like this higher elevated me, and because what it does is it connects both parts of your brain, and it allows you to really expand your creativity and intuition. And then so he had learned it from a woman. I think she was a child psychologist, Lucia Capacchione, I believe is her name. And so it's cool that you were doing that in 1980s, which is amazing. You are a true pioneer, Paul. But it's like I get so we have some pretty high level people that are part of our Maverick group, and so we do a trip to Richard Branson's island every year. And every once in a while, when I'm leading a session, I might reintroduce this idea of the left hand, the non-dominant handwriting. And so I did it on the last session last year, and I forgot what we were doing, but one of my friends who's a member, he's seen this before. He's like, I just hear him like groan. I'm like, just do it, John. And he's like, all right. And he's like, he's like, damn it, Yanik, I got the answer I needed. And I'm like, yeah, because we have the answers inside of us. It's just how do we figure out those ways and these mechanisms of like bringing it forth, and then sometimes getting out of our logical minds.
So in that, I have a practice in addition to journaling is that I do yoga to get my body set, and I sit for meditation every day. And it's one of those non-negotiables. I do it because I know that this is a place where I connect to myself, I connect to the universe, it connects me to what I know as creative source. What kind of meditation practice would you recommend to people who are out here in the chaos of this world on a daily basis?
Yeah. It's one of those things where, again, it's like just experiment, just play. Like, think of it as I'm going to play around and see what works for me. And so I've done all sorts of experiments where it could be no sugar, it could be no alcohol, it could be, the meditative practice or changing something, and then you just see, does it work for you? And again, there's almost like no right or wrong way of meditating. It's become much bigger. It's become more technology based too, which has been interesting. I've always been like, so I learned meditation. It's been about 12 years now that I've been a consistent meditator. And if I look back on my world before, I'm like, how did I not do that? Because it's so grounding, and it's such a, then, it went from once a day to then twice a day. And it's just like, it's just so much more. Um, it just brings everything together. And so, again, it's just like play with it and see what works for you. But I've also been recently adding more and more breath work, and that's
Mm.
been a really nice thing where, so I've got the meditation, but so for those of us that are like maybe a little more like, oh, or show me, I don't know, the how this really works, and I want to feel the difference right away. The breath work really does that in different ways, and it could be 5 minutes of just breathing in certain ways, and it'll just change your physiology, which then completely transforms how you show up.
Yeah, in yoga science and philosophy, breath is the most complete of all the sciences. It's called pranayama, or the control of that first unit of energy that flows from the divine. And there are so many cool, more modern takes on breath work. The Wim Hof method has all
Yeah,
kinds of different cool
but it's
things.
ancient. Yeah.
Ancient stuff, and Gautama yoga. And I learned rebirthing in 1972. I took rebirthing trainings and did
With
breath work. And
Stanislav Grof.
no, this was with Leonard Orr and the
Okay.
group of, it's great stuff. And at Rhythmia in Costa
Yep.
Rica, they do a lot of breath work, really cool stuff that they're doing nowadays. Big fan of it. I sit and I do channel purification before I do any meditation, just to get everything lined up. Super helpful, super powerful. So thanks for that. One of the things that I teach everybody in my inner circle, I give them a HeartMath monitor, so the inner balance, so they clip it to their ear and they learn to do that heart lock breathing, that breathing in and out through the place of the heart, exhaling gratitude, kindness, forgiveness into the world, and receiving it back into that space of the heart. And most meditation traditions have this idea of meditating in the space of the cave of the heart. And you wrote something really powerful to me in your book. It's this idea that the heart is the beacon home. So could you say anything else about what are practices? You've got meditation, you've got breath work, you've got journaling. Are these all connecting you with that heart, your mind, your higher purpose?
Yeah, I mean, all of it is trying to get you out of maybe this reactive spot,
Mm.
and that spot of like that jumbled, there's so much going on, there's so many inputs coming in, but what's true to me? And I had a teacher once share with me, and I love it, one of the elder wisdom keepers, and it was like, you have so much that you could do, but what is truly yours to do? And these kind of practices, get you into that place of like, okay, well, and it's interesting because most people are like, all right, well, once I'm successful, then it's so much easier. But in some ways, it's harder because you have all these opportunities and all these things that are showing up, and so it really has to come back to, all right, what is truly yours to do, and these kind of practices bring you to it. And then it's fascinating, like the journaling, that has been my longest practice, and that's the one that I keep coming back to over and over again because it's so powerful, and because you can I love synchronicity too, so I'll just pop open a journal and be like, all right, what was I worried about, or what was I excited for, or what were the themes happening, and then you start seeing these patterns. You're like, okay, this is the same stuff. One, either make a decision about this, or just leave it, or just whatever it is, or like, oh, that was a pretty good idea. Let me bring this back in. And then there's also ways, I'm curious if you do this. I have friends who are way more disciplined than I am in parts of it where they index. So they'll have an index on dates and with what the idea was, or so that they can go back and find it and what journal number it was. I'm like, oh, it's pretty good, but mine is more serendipitous um but I do want to, there's, so again, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. The other thing that I've recently really added, and that has helped me open up my heart even more, is cacao, ceremonial cacao. And so cacao is what chocolate is made out of, but then it goes through, like, usually like the milk and the emulsifiers and all the stuff that kind of makes it not so good anymore. But cacao has this great amazing history where it was actually used for commerce. It was used in ceremony, anywhere in Central America. And so it's kind of like wine, where each region has its own energy to it as well. But the one that I got connected to is this Costa Rican cacao, and it's been incredible. Where almost every day, I pretty much don't drink coffee anymore, and it's just it gives you sustained energy. It gives you a little more euphoria, opens up your heart even more. So that's another one that's maybe a little bit of a unusual one to add, but it's powerful.
That's really good. In fact, I have cacao in a tea blend that I take each day, and I love it as well. Really good. And I think there's something also really important what you're saying, Yanik, is this idea of creating a sacrament, creating a sacred space, creating a regular practice that brings us back to our center. And from that, we have more peace to then go do what is ours to do in the world. And I think the other thing is, by reducing a lot of the chaos in the mind, as we venture into the unknown, the word entrepreneur is the one who takes the first step, right? So it's this idea, as we venture into the unknown, we don't have to see it as a dangerous and foreboding unknown, but we see it as a fertile unknown, that there's an emergent experience that we're looking for, we're on the hunt for, and we're discovering every single day. When we're awake to it, we'll discover it, we'll see it.
Yeah, and going back to the heart being that way forward, it's I think that following your heart is frequently scary, but never wrong. And what you can do is look at times when you followed your heart, right? So look for these confirmations that you have in your own life, and give yourself the confidence to know that when you do that, everything does work out. It might work out in a different way, but it really does work out. And so your journal is a good spot for it, but it doesn't have to be. But you can just start making a list of all those times, and again, that just shows you, okay, oh, I did this. This opened up in this way that I didn't expect, and here's what happened. So then it just gives you more confidence for the next time.
I love that way of thinking about it. Thank you for that. As we finish up, there is this idea you wrote in the epilogue in your book. I fully believe that you cannot have within you a deep, deep desire for a creation without also at the same time having the capacity, natural abilities, and resources to bring it into being. And there is a phrase from Emerson that was very much like that. And Goethe, to move boldly, it has genius, power, and magic in it, right? So as we finish up, is there a final thought of encouragement that you might offer someone? I mean, you've stated it beautifully in so many ways, that when we're on the threshold of our own transformation, there's a guardian there that's stopping us. It's part of the hero's journey, but there's a guardian there that's stopping us, and it's not there to send us home. It's there to say, look, if you're going to cross this threshold, go all in. You can't go in wholehearted or half-heartedly. You've got to go in wholeheartedly. And then once you cross that threshold, you discover, like you and I are together because we share a friendship on the path of this transformational work that's happening, unfolding in the world. We'll always encounter the resources that we need. So, final thought on that for anybody who may want to live more fully into the great expression of their magnificence.
Well, with your indulgence, why don't we have a little synchronicity be our final thought then for that?
Perfect, thanks.
We could either pull a page out of the Cosmic Journal or one of the cards, your choice.
Yeah, it's 77.
All right, let's do it. 77. Let's see. So we did not. So we didn't set this up ahead of time so everyone knows. But and I'll provide that picture for you as well. But this is what it says. So as connected to that idea of moving forward and the threshold and everything that we've talked about. So this would be our kind of capstone. It says your words create worlds. You can learn so much about someone simply by paying attention to their words and language. What we say or think determines what we believe is possible or impossible. Phrases like "I can't" or "I'll try" indicate they've given up before even starting. Stop yourself and slow down to really examine what you're telling yourself. Your words invoke what's real. Take apart your next excuse and really observe what you're saying. Is it even true? Why are you repeating it? Where did it come from? What are the empowering words you could use instead? Words are alive with real power. Ensure you're using magic words to open up more worlds.
Excellent.
There you go.
Perfect capstone, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I started as a copywriter, so words are so powerful and so important, and it's fascinating when you do slow down and see what are the words and what's that internal dialogue, what's the words I'm using as I'm having conversation, and then what are the words, maybe in paper that I'm writing in the journal or anywhere else.
Yeah, and I started my life in this work as a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I was listening to people's narratives of the trance that they were limiting their life with. And
Right.
all my work wasn't to give them new suggestions, it was to awaken them from that trance.
Mm.
And as we remember, I love the way
Yeah.
you put that, is we
Yeah.
remember who we are and we restory our life with restore ourselves to our wholeness. Everything we need is given to us.
I love that. Yeah. I haven't heard that one before. I like that. The restore and the restory. That's beautiful. That's really fun. And I think journaling, and we keep harping on journaling because we're both such fans, but journaling is a way to like rewrite your past, your present, and your future. And so it's like something that we all have these things that happen to us, but we get to decide what is the story that we get to continue forward with it. And it's journaling is one of those ways of restoring for sure.
Beautiful. Yanik, you're such a blessing to the world. Thank you so much for this time together.
I appreciate it, Paul. Thanks. It's a lot of fun.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Yanik Silver. You can learn more about Yanik at maverick1000.com. That's MAVERICK1000.com. And now in the second part of the podcast, it's just you and me. I'll tell you how to use the paraliminal sessions in the MINDTRX app to easily handle obstacles and move toward the success you want, especially as it relates to Yanik's message. If you're new to the relaxing paraliminal audio sessions, they use breakthrough technologies to activate your whole mind in only 20 minutes to improve any area of your life. Let's get going. Hi, and welcome to this follow-up to my conversation with Yanik Silver, an amazing entrepreneur, man who's doing tremendous work in the world, and a real pleasure to hang out with him and talk about not only how we develop a consciousness in our business, but also how we get that full expression of ourselves in the world. Now, the thoughts that I had about what we might cover around paraliminal technology, there were 4 areas I thought that might be themes for the conversation that I had. One is about success in business and in life. Whether you're an entrepreneur or not doesn't really matter all that much in terms of what we're really talking about. Second is how to live full out each day. Third is the area that was an interesting subtext to the way that we were chatting. It's the idea that the universe has your back and you're always given everything that you need to accomplish what's important to you. And the final one is the idea of developing a journaling practice. He's so big on journaling, and I really was trying to pull out from him, how do we really develop a practice around it? So let's get into it. This idea of success in business and in life. The ideas that are presented in a paraliminal that I did with Stuart Emery is called Success Built to Last. It's based on the idea that whatever you do what it is that truly motivates you, what is truly on your heart, what you truly love. And even if you do it very badly at first, because you're doing what you love, you're following your bliss, basically you're engaged in something that's making your life better. And you're going to get better and better every time that you engage in that activity. So success built to last, super good. The other is the idea of creativity supercharger. I have found that leaning into creativity is very important. Yanik, very creative man, has really blossomed with his evolved entrepreneurship, evolved enterprise, and also with his Maverick 1000. I do recommend his book because it's remarkable how creative he really is, and in his journaling book as well. The Cosmic Journal, the Galactic Instruction Manual, published by Hay House. So very cool. Anyway, this idea that creativity is an essential way in which we're always creating value for the world that we serve. It could be in a job that you have, or it could be in building products and services for clients for the business that you run. Creativity is at the very essence of all of it. I made a statement that the only and everlasting source of profit is the creation of value, a quotation from Akio Morita from Sony Corporation. The only and everlasting source of profit, the goodies that we get, is basically the value that we produce and provide to others. The second area is this idea of living full out each day. If you can awaken with a purpose on your mind, with gratitude in your heart, you can go out and live wholeheartedly into the world, you're going to make a big difference, not only in your own life, but in the lives of everyone that you encounter. And the first one I would recommend, first paraliminal in this, is joy, because that's coming from a place of passion in your heart for that which you're choosing to bring to the world. What's yours to bring? What's yours to do? If you're on it, you're always going to have the guidance necessary and the resources necessary to bring it. So joy is the first one for living full out each day. The second is conscious time. Conscious time is such a neat one. It starts out with the idea, wouldn't it be wonderful if you always had enough time? And so many people in our busy, chaotic, hectic lives, we're always affirming this idea, well, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. And the truth is, you really do, if you'd stop saying that. And conscious time will help you lean into and expand your productive use of every minute that you choose to live this day. Powerful paraliminal. Next area, we've talked about success in business and life, living full out. The third area is trust that the universe has your back. I think if we could do thought experiments, little tests to prove, if you could make your life a laboratory like Yanik is suggesting and put 21 days or 33 days into the experiment, you're going to discover some powerful changes that can occur for the better in your life. I think that the first paraliminal that's really helpful is fearlessness, because to cross the threshold into the life that's possible for you is to confront some fears or some resistance that you have. And resistance is always associated with some prior life experience that says, hey, be careful, bad things could happen. Fearlessness lets you step up to the threshold of what's possible and take that next small step forward and discover you're still okay. Take another step. You're still okay. So it's really good. It works at a really deep level, but it also trains you in how to live boldly and fearlessly every single day of your life. I know that one of Yanik's favorite books is by Brené Brown, who wrote a book called Daring Greatly. And it's really all about that. The other paraliminal in this segment of The Universe Has Your Back is prosperity. And essentially what you're doing is he's saying, hey, the universe is abundant. My access to that abundance is my prosperity consciousness. And if you could breathe and realize that the universe is here supporting you, spot on. Prosperity paraliminal. It's one I refer to almost all the time when I do these follow-up call or segments to the podcasts. The fourth final area that I'm going to recommend is developing a journaling practice. And in this, probably the number one most common journal is a journal not just of self-reflection and inquiry, but a gratitude journal. And what's interesting is there's been a lot of good research that's been done, cognitive and emotional positive results from keeping a gratitude journal. So if you did nothing else but just think about what you're grateful for, and that's what the paraliminal is getting you to focus on, you'll always get more of what you focus your attention on. Your energy always flows where your attention goes. So you put it to what you appreciate, what you're truly grateful for, you'll get more of that. What you appreciate appreciates. And if you keep a journal of it, you're going to see that expanding level of wonderful, awe-inspiring benefits that can come your way. The second paraliminal is get around to it. Now, one of the things that Yanik said is, hey, he has a time just before he goes to bed. So don't go to bed until you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever you want, to write a few ideas in a journal. And get a journal that you really love. The feel of it looks cool. You got a pen. I use a pen. I have it here next to my journal. The journal I have, it's one of these kind of just absolutely love it. And the pen is it's a Cartier pen. It was a gift to me when I got my doctorate from dear friends. And this pen is $360 for a pen. So it's so precious. Every time I hold it, every time I use it, I think of what friendship and what gifts are all about. And it's, you get the right seat, you get the right journal, you get the right pen. Sometimes you just love writing, just get into it. And if you feel resistance coming up, paraliminal, get around to it, will always move you past it. It's not that big a deal, and the payoffs are immense. Enjoy. Thanks for being here. Thank you for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can easily use the paraliminal audio sessions in the MINDTRX app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, that's your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and to propel you toward the success you want. Go to www.mindtrx.com/go. That's www.mindtrx.com/go. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your world today. Be sure to be back for more episodes of the MINDTRX podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. Thank you again for being here on our MINDTRX podcast.